Mr. Speaker, like many people here, I'm born of the generation after the war. We grew up listening to the stories of our fathers and mothers, our aunts and our uncles, and our neighbours about the experiences that they had during those times of the Second World War, in some cases the Korean War, for my own family. And we grew up as children in awe of these people and thinking, my, what an amazing experience these people had and how lucky they were. We thought as children, my God, look at those stories. And we'd run to the movie to watch John Wayne and others reenact those moments of, as we saw them then as young children, glory in the battles around the world when it came to the Second World War. We picked up the comic books and we read every comic book we can get our hands on. We read the stories. We wanted to get as much information as we could because we felt as if we were missing out on something. Because we were missing out on an experience that our parents, our mothers, our fathers, our uncles, our aunts, our neighbors had gone through. And we thought, geez, were they ever lucky? At least that's how I felt as a young boy growing up. My father served, my uncle served, as many of my aunts and uncles who served in different parts of the armed forces during the Second World War, many of which saw action, many who were shot, and some who were decorated. And I grew up thinking, my God, I'm so unlucky not to be part of that generation. Look at this experience that they had. And I never understood at first when I'd listened to the stories of the aunts and uncles and others who talked about their experiences in England and Africa, North Africa, or Italy, as they went through the various theaters of war that Canada was involved in. And for some of the later generation, those who served in Korea. But here's what's remarkable, and it took me years to figure this out. They never talked about the experience of war. They talked about camaraderie. They talked about the time that they got together and had a couple of drinks, stole a couple of eggs, and found a bottle of wine. And they just had a great time thinking of those stories when their friends that they were in this experience with were able to share in each other's company and find some normality in this experience that they were going through. And those are the stories that I remember, and I thought, that's what war is all about. It's about this glorious experience. And it wasn't until my, family members were a lot older, and I remember my Uncle Conrad Bisson was my godfather. When I was at the funeral, my aunt said, Gilles, he says, you need to know that your uncle, most nights when he went to bed, woke up in a cold sweat. He was a flamethrower operator. She said he can wake up in the middle of the night and still smell the flesh burning. There is nothing glorious about war. It's a horrific experience. And that's what I began to figure out as I got older. The reason that our fathers and our mothers and our aunts and our uncles and our neighbors never talked about the actual experience, it's not one that they can share with anybody else. It's only an experience that you can talk to others who have been there with you. And you try to find some way to hold on together before you go nuts, or you hit the bottle, or your marriage breaks down, or you beat your children, or whatever it might be. Because those experiences mark those men and women in ways that we understand as a generation after the war. Luckily for me, and luckily for all of us, most people came through that experience and were able to land on their feet and make good with themselves and figure out some way to process everything that had happened as far as those horrific experiences. But some didn't. Some, to the day they died, were affected and marked by those experiences. I used to wonder, why is it that a lot of my uncles tended to hit the bottle a little bit more than others? That's what it was all about. Some of them were just trying to forget. And sometimes they got some bad habits when they were in England and they were in North Africa or Italy, because sometimes, yeah, they did find a couple of eggs and a couple of bottles of wine and had a good time. But what it teaches us, and what Remembrance Day is all about, is what the Legionnaires say at all of these ceremonies, lest we not forget. Because war is not something that is glamorous. War is not something that is glorious. War is not something to be celebrated. We're to celebrate those who served on behalf of us so that we can have the democracy that we have today, but learn from their experience never to do it again. Millions of people died in the Second World War. Imagine what this planet would be like if many of those people from various nations, from Russia to Canada and everywhere in between, would have been able to live in this planet and contribute to our societies, how different of a planet we might be. But instead they were taken quite horrifically in all kinds of different manners and all kinds of different experiences in those horrific experiences. So I say to all of us, yes, let's go to the Remembrance Day ceremonies. Let's go and celebrate with our vets. Let's celebrate their contribution. But let us not forget, war is not glorious. War is an experience that none of us should have to experience. And let's be thankful that those before us did, so that we don't have to ourselves.